Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and thanks for joining Chasing Energy. Today, our guest is Art Trapotsis. Now, Art is the author of the book, The Everyday Athlete, and he is in a cycling club called Keep It Tight. What we cover in this interview is the principle of the book. And by the way, I've read it. It's an easy read. It's on Amazon. Uh, is how do you balance your competitive weekend warriorness with, having a family and then also work? And Art can practice what he preaches. He has children. He also is the CEO of a medical company. And we swap some stories about how you kind of get it done, if you will, and how, that the reason behind being a competitive athlete on the weekends, and, maybe you're signing up for anything from a 5K to an Ironman, is that you want to be. You're probably never going to get sponsored. If you are, congratulations. But it's more so about how does it make you a better person? How does it make you a better father? How does it make you a better employee and productive? And how do you enjoy life because of the training? So this is a big passion one for me. I absolutely enjoyed this interview. In fact, Art reached out to me, and when I started looking at his book, I was like, man, I love this concept for the book. Again, it's not a super long book. It's an easy read, and it's really about how do you make it work with your wife when you both have a race on the same day, or when you have a season that you really want to be competitive, and then there's also needs to be a season for work and then a season for the kids. So we cover a lot of that in this interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Please reach out to Art. I put links to his webpage and book in the show notes. It's artrapotsis.com, and that's where you can reach him and take the quiz that we talk about in the interview. Enjoy. Love to have a review, guys. Throw something up there. Just a couple of quick words would be wonderful. Thanks so much. Art Trapotsis, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
I'm excited to have you. Thanks for joining Chasing Energy. You are the author of the book, The Everyday Athlete. And I think the world has needed a book like this for a while. And in fact, I get this question a lot too, which is, why don't you have guests who are more like the layman, where they can speak layman's terms and not all this crazy stuff. So you really do a great job in your book of spelling out what it means to have your career, your fitness, and your family, and how you sort of keep all those things in check and how they support each other through the journey that is life. So let's start by saying, give us a summary of your book and who should read it.
Well, I tried to make the audience, pretty much anybody who's interested in getting into athletics or is already into some sort of competitive sport, but it also has a family and is trying to, develop or has developed a career and has goals that they want to achieve. The original concept for the book was started about 10 years ago. I was a competitive cyclist, and there's an expression we were using called keep it tight. And that's an expression we were using, as we ride in the pace line, staying one behind another to get the draft. But we started to use that expression to describe, my friends who have found a way to get their careers going, get married, have some kids, and then also remain competitive. And we're like, wow, those guys are keeping it tight. And that's how the whole idea of the book started. I wanted to interview those folks and see how they were doing it.
I think that's a great concept. And so delve in your book, you talk a little bit about you calling yourself an athlete and when it's appropriate to do so, and that some people are intimidated to do that. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, so it actually came to be because I had posted a ride on Strava. And for those that don't know, Strava is it's an app. It's a platform where you can upload your runs, your rides, your swims. And it's sort of a social platform so you can see what others are doing. And I posted one morning and said, had a great ride with some local athletes. And a couple of days later, one of the guys on that ride said, "Art, I saw your post. You rode with me the other day. Um, are you calling me an athlete?" And I said, "Of course I am. You're out here every morning, getting in your hill intervals and your exercise every day. How can you not call yourself an athlete?"
Very well said. And C.S. Lewis has stated, and I think of social media when I read this, but it says comparison is the thief of joy. And Strava can definitely fall in that category of once you get on a Strava, you're constantly looking at other people's times and going, "Oh my gosh, man!" Now it does sort of ignite competitive things in you, but it'll also alert you you're no longer the record holder on this track or this segment. Or they need to factor age a little bit into those things too. The masters group,
I agree
as well. So I like what you're saying there. My follow-up question to the athlete part was, do you have, beyond the word athlete, do you have any type of word for like different levels of athletes, or do you just sort of throw it into that group?
Yeah, I mean, there's competitive athletes, super competitive athletes, super gifted athletes, but just using the base term athlete for someone who has never done anything competitive or athletic, and for them to get them in their mindset that they think of themselves as athletic or an athlete, there's a shift that happens. They might have one less drink in the evening before that group ride the next day.
Yeah.
They might eat a little bit better. They might start to think about training as, more than just like haphazardly going out for a ride or a run every day, and maybe start applying some structure to it. So
so going from passive thinking to active thinking, and then projecting themselves with the verbiage as a sort of like a mantra. I am an athlete. I need to get to this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
When I first made, and you can probably speak to this as well, Art, when you get on a racing team and you wear a jersey for that team, it does make you push a little harder in the events, because first of all, people are targeting you when you're part of a race team because they want to beat somebody on the race team.
Absolutely.
And second of all, you're representing, so you're like, I can't half-ass this thing. Yeah. For example, let's say you're cycling and you're about 5 miles and it's not your day. There have been times where I'm tempted to just go, let's just coast this one in.
I knew it.
But when I'm wearing the jersey, it's like you don't want to coast in. I don't want anybody to blow by me just so they could smack the back of the jersey or whatever.
Let me just add, I don't really do much racing anymore, but I do love to have one event on the calendar where I can put a number on. And it could be a charity event, a grand fondo, a gravel ride, a 5K run. But just having that on like once a year, it keeps like the athlete vibe going.
Very much so. And that's what I was alluding to is, just like with having that jersey on, when you have an event on the calendar, you talked about having one less drink or doing this or getting up that. I'll give you a classic example. When you don't have an event on the calendar, and let's say that the weather ain't great, it is so much easier to skip that training ride or run when it's cold and rainy outside. But when you have that race on your calendar and you have your goal time, it is like, well, I guess I'm getting wet.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not missing. Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny how the mind works. It binds to things that are very tacit, and it can grapple with that versus, I asked someone a goal the other day financially, and they said, I want to be rich. And I was like, that means nothing. I was like, that's about as vague as can possibly be. There's no timeline, and there's nothing to it.
Yep.
So speaking of timeline, let's talk about some tips and tricks from your book as to how you make time to train for the person who has the family and the career.
Yeah. First of all, we have family calendar. I've got the work calendar, and we kind of lay out, each week. And usually you'll find pockets of time where you can get in your 1 hour workout. And oftentimes it can be very early in the morning. For example, this morning I was up at 5:30, had to bring my kid to camp by 7. It could be lunchtime, could be after dinner or something. First up is the calendar piece. And with that comes the communication piece. And just sort of having the conversation, oh, you have basketball and soccer this weekend. Okay, great. While you're, when you're done with that, dad's going to go out and do a couple hours on the bike. That's one piece of it. So there's calendar, there's communication. The third piece of it is having the motivation and having something to train towards. I feel like is very, very motivating for when you need to squeeze in a workout. And the fourth thing I mentioned, I'm sort of laughing here because I called it the crabbiness index. And when you have this internal feeling of when you start to get crabby, bitchy, irritated after not exercising for a few days, if you have an awareness of how many days that is, maybe it's only a day, maybe it's 5 days. If you know what that is, and for me, it's about 48 hours, you always try to get exercise before you get to that level. So I have a little sort of, scale in the book about what's your crabbiness index, and anybody can check that out.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you, as someone who's read way too many self-development books, you had a system going there because you started with 2 C's and you ended with a 4th C. So you need to call it like the 4C. You get it down to 4 C's and it'll catch on a whole lot better.
Thank you for the advice.
Yeah. Crabbiness was the 4th one. But you could throw in commitment or something for that 3rd one. But you said calendar, communication, and then doing the workout, and then crabbiness. So you've got your homework there, and it'll click through on social media a little easier. By the way, crabbiness index. My kids know full well if I have not exercised on Saturday morning, it drives them gonzo. And because I'm like, if I happen to skip it, they'll be like, I'll get them up and be like, all right, guys, how long till we go to the park? And then we're going to go to it. And they're just like, oh my gosh, Dad, give me a break, man. Go do something. So I don't think mine's 48 hours, especially on a Saturday. To me, a Saturday is like, if I didn't get something done early that morning, the rest of the day I'm kind of antsy. What I will flip that around, Art, and say is, if I get a really hard workout in, so think of intervals day. My children have they don't know what an interval is, but my children have always noticed I behave differently after intervals day. So and the reason is I'm so lax and done. So I'll get home, make them breakfast, and then just like they'll go, "What do you want to do today, Dad?" And I'll be like, honestly, guys, if we don't do much today, I'm okay. And that's where they're like, this is fantastic. They're like, what if we had pizza tonight, which I normally will say no to? And I'm like, you know what? Pizza sounds good. I don't have the willpower to push back on anything. So they really appreciate it. It's the crabbiness index works in their favor.
And you're more at peace. Sounds like.
Very much more at peace. Yeah. It's almost euphoric, really. So here's a question. What are some signs, and this is in your book, so what are some signs that you are overdoing it?
So overdoing it for me could be overdoing it in the sphere of work or training. I think it's a bit hard to overdo it in the sphere of family. But let's just take work first. I sort of posit that if you're working more than 50, 55 hours a week, that maybe, that's overdoing it. Now, you're talking to someone who's an entrepreneur who, grew a business and started as like me. So I've worked many more hours than that. But I sort of did it respectfully and when there was time. From the athletic training perspective, I think you're overdoing it. Again, I'll put it more in terms of hours. I think, beyond 10 hours, consecutive weeks is that's a challenge on the family and also on work. And, I think I talk about Ironman triathletes and they need the, 18 to 25 hours a week sometimes as you build up the event.
Yeah, they do.
And that is super challenging on the family and also work. And that's where the communication piece comes in to kind of set up the calendar of, hey, does this make sense for our lives that I try to squeeze in this Ironman training?
Yeah. Longest training ride I had for Ironman was in my basement, and it started at 4:30 in the morning, and it was 3.5 hours of Netflix.
My gosh.
And man, what a boring way to spend a morning. But I was like, I got to get this 3 hour. I had not spent a lot of time on the bike, and I had to get that in about 3 weeks prior to the race. That early AM to me is that is the first thing I'll tell people to carve out. And it's funny, Art, because it's really a domino effect, man. You tell somebody, you're going to have to, if you're going to do this event, and you're going to need to train about 15 hours, at least 15 hours a week, especially for an Ironman. The first place to carve time in most people's schedule is going to be that about between 4:30 and 5 a.m. up to about 7:30. And because that's where a lot of stuff goes unnoticed. And it's a domino effect in the sense that it's like, well, goodness gracious, I don't know how much. The domino effect is you're going to have to start turning off the electronics by 8 instead of 9:30. You're going to have to cut back on the alcohol for this, and or the excessive food or whatever, to the point where you're completely wound down by 8:45. Which I know would shock most people, but when you're getting up at 4:30 to put in an hour to 2.5 hours a day, which is, that's what's on par for an Ironman. I don't know if you're just looking at surviving it, there's probably 10-hour training plans, but to get in the water 3 days a week, to get on the bike 4 days a week, and to run, and then there's some strength training components there too. The term Iron Widow is for the wives of some of these people, but Ironman is a sport that, because of the low impact, it's very easy to give it a lot.
And I think if you have kids and work, I would say that if you're doing an Ironman, you're probably not balanced. You're probably out of balance for those few months that you're training for it. And
well, yeah, and I agree with that, Art. I think almost to get growth in any area, we almost have to be out of balance. And but the idea there is to do it in such a way that it's calculated, sustainable, and accepted. Yeah. So, for example, let's say your company is about to put out a new product, or it's about to acquire somebody. You're like, hey, the next 3 months they're going to be out of balance. Instead of riding an hour a day, I'm going to have to ride 30 minutes a day, or an hour every other day is going to probably be the case. I'm going to need a lot of help. We're going to have a big vacation, a family vacation for a week when this is done, and I'm going to watch the kids or whatever. But the idea there is sometimes to get growth in a particular area, you have to kind of push it out of the norm.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much the way, I think you'll agree, Art. Most recreational athletes, they get to a certain level and then you plateau, right? Whether you're golfing or running or biking. And then you see them kind of stuck at that level, and it's like the only way you're going to get through this is you're going to have to do the stuff you've never wanted to do or never been willing to do. And that it may involve going on riding with people that are faster, or actually, in my case, recovering in a way that's actually recovery, instead of starting with a recovery ride or run and then giving it my all every time, because I just couldn't bring myself to just take it easy.
People.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, it's so the challenge I do on those days is I spend more time walking and hiking with my kids, and I'll have a heart rate monitor on and say, you're not allowed to get past this many beats per minute or you're violating the agreement.
I posted a recovery ride yesterday to my team, and 6 or 7 people show up, and I'm leading the ride. It's a recovery ride. It's just a nice spin, in the morning before work. And immediately we're like a bit strung out. And I said, meaning, we're separated, not together as a group. And I said to the guys, guys, I call the recovery ride today. We're going to do this in its truest form. No one's going above, zone 1 and zone 2 max. So chill out on the hills and let's just chat and catch up on things. And that's where the friend piece comes in. I chat about that in the book a little bit, just like, mixing exercise with catching up with friends. It's a great time to do that on recovery days. I caught up on everybody's work and family and how they're doing in the summer. And it was a great way to just reconnect with some good friends I hadn't seen for a few weeks.
So 2 thoughts on that. One is, if they interpret recovery ride as recovering from a stressful week, they may want to drop you and put in some zone 4 work. But on this topic, let's talk about earning and leveraging social capital.
All right. So when I talk about social capital, talking about friends, is that your question?
Social capital in the book is both family and friends. Yeah. So you can leverage it either way you want.
Yeah, so I mentioned, having some sort of group exercise session with your friends. It could be a hike or a run or whatever it is that you're into. The other thing I try to do, which includes my whole family, is, I mentioned this thing, every Friday night we get together. We call it the Usual. For the usual thing. I know it's kind of cheesy, but we call it the usual. And every Friday night we got folks coming over, maybe 2 or 3 couples and their families, and we reconnect after the work week. And it's a great way to kind of keep the social interactions going when your life is so stressed out and busy. And we sort of made that a staple in our lives for the last 10 or 15 years. So, it's, we're speaking here on a Friday, and in about 2 hours, there'll be a huge at my house. So
yeah,
we found that.
It's funny you say that, because when I read it in the book, I wasn't sure how you pronounce it, but now it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about win-win solutions for active parents. So there's either a training conflict on the calendar or a race. We talked about the sitter suddenly becomes unavailable. Let's talk about some creative solutions for parents who have a conflict on racing or training.
Yep. So my wife and I were both competitive triathletes and cyclists. We met at a bike race. So we both have a desire to exercise. And one thing you have to understand, if your significant other doesn't have that desire, is that if you want to carve out 8 to 10 hours in a particular week to exercise, just know that they want to carve out 8 to 10 hours that week to do what they want to do. And just having that level of awareness, I just want to start off, you need to have a level of awareness that whatever it is we're doing, someone else is going to want to do something equivalent in terms of time. I think it goes back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, just about the communication piece. And, let's take any given Saturday in my house. Okay. I'm the early bird. If we don't have any sports conflicts with the kids, or we're not going to the park or something, I'm the one that goes out from that 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., let's say, or 6 to 9. And then when I get back, usually I'm on breakfast. My wife goes out from that 9 to 12 slot. And we just have this sort of thing. So after noontime, we're all together as a family and doing things, fun the rest of the day, or doing chores or whatever it might be. So that's how we sort of finagle it. It's just open communication, starting basically from Sunday night going forward.
Mm-hmm. You have a much better way of wording that, because the way I look at it is nobody cares. If I'm in a race, if I'm training, if I come in and go, oh man, it was so hard out there today. It was muggy, and I got a gnat up under my eyelid at mile 5 and had to go. They're like, we don't care. We don't, or I'll say, man, in that race, I had to go to the well, and they don't care. So that's one thing I keep in mind is just because it gives me fulfillment and it's super hard and challenging. I come back home and go, they don't care about any of this. Like it doesn't.
What we have to do as athletes or as folks who are getting in our exercise, when we come back from our exercise, we have to be prepared to basically be on. Like we can't spend an hour downloading data, analyzing data, looking at Strava, looking at that my run. We have to come in, quick shower, and then, okay, we're on. What does the family need?
Bingo. That's a great way of putting it, man. Yep. That's a great way of putting it. I generally try to have the first thing I do when I come in is I make my coffee, and I try to be out of the shower by the time the espresso machine's warmed up. And then I go straight into making breakfast for everybody. So I just don't give myself a break at that point. The break is while they're eating breakfast, I sit down and have my coffee.
Yeah, so, exactly.
So let's talk about zone 2 and periodization and the importance of having seasons. You kind of alluded to that in your book.
Yes. So I sort of structure the year so there's maybe some downtime. Maybe a couple months of where there's still exercise going on in my life, but there's nothing really focused. And if I have an event, let's say, I live in the Northern Hemisphere up in Boston. So a lot of our events happen in, May, June, July, August. So I do a big sort of ramp where the first 2 or 3 months is a lot of zone 2 training where there's not much intensity. And for those that might not know who are listening, we're talking zones 1 to 5, zone 2 being just a pace you can sort of talk at and not really overexert yourself. But as you're doing the zone 2, it creates this amazing foundation, builds up mitochondria in the cells, and it's the base of the pyramid. And as you go up the pyramid, you're adding more intensity as the year goes on, as you get closer to your event. And
it is the most, zone 2 is, at least historically, is the most neglected zone by recreational athletes. Yes. They want to get out there, get their heart rate up. They want to do Orange Theory and get their heart rate up super high, break a big sweat. And if you're only working out 2 days a week like that, it's probably fine. But,
Yeah, a lot of, weekend warriors, and I suppose I am one now, where, you have that one big ride you want to do on Saturday. You want to do it hard. So you're in zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. And I think it's fine. If maybe there isn't anything you really want to peak for and you just want to have a good high level baseline fitness, you'll be fine. If you actually want to be the best athlete you can be at a future date, then you have to be way more disciplined and allow yourself to get, just the proper amount of training in that zone too.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because when I was thinking of the Daniel Lucas version of an athlete, I was going to myself because I looking at your definition, I was like, well, what do I consider an athlete? And I was like, quantitatively, what would I consider? And I thought to myself, there needs to be some type of seasonality in your training, or that you always have some type of base fitness, so that when I think of an athlete, I think someone who actually has a season where they're active.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not active all year, but they have like a peak part of their year that they go, this is where my races exist and whatnot.
I have a friend who basically he lives his life. He used to be a competitive runner, but he says, I never like to be more than 8 weeks away from my peak.
Yeah.
And I just find
I'm probably, I can relate to that. Yeah.
So you're always maintaining like a pretty good baseline of fitness. And then if there is an event, okay, I'm going to sharpen the pencil and start doing some intervals and get ready for that. I actually really like that because it sort of keeps you always engaged and training a bit.
Yeah, that's it. And I've never put a time cap on it of 8 weeks, but that's probably pretty close to what I do. I'm trying to get better about letting go in, for example, and not running for an entire month and doing, because I do so many other things anyway. But I've been taking up the bike because of the heat in this. And I think I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to stop running during the summer and just focus on the bike.
Your knees will appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is my last question for you. You talk about when people see someone who's kind of in their zone at work and they're effective and they're a thinker, that oftentimes if you look at their schedule, they're putting in the work before they actually go to the office. So can you
When you say
explain a
the
little bit about
work
that?
before the office, do you mean the exercise?
I intentionally left that vague because you could argue it's meditation, you could argue it's the exercise, but they take time for themselves prior to going into the office.
Yes. So I'm a big believer, and I can see it. I run a company of about 50 employees, and I can see folks that carve out time for I'm going to call it exercise because I just know what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're more productive. They're more sort of even keel. They're more engaged. And I really firmly believe that there's a strong connection. There's a book I reference in my book called Spark, which talks all about the biochemical reactions that happen in our brains that affect this productivity. And as a result, a couple of years ago, I started a wellness program at my company where we have monthly wellness events. It's voluntary. No one's forced to do anything, but we have some fun events like a walking challenge where anybody can just use their phone and record their steps. And we have we sort of made it into a fun little, program. We tried juicing, a juicing cleanse. We tried meditation. We have meditations a couple times a month. So I try to integrate it because I know there's value in the workplace, and I really encourage other business owners to allow for that time because they'll reap the benefits of productivity.
And it's amazing that you do that, Art. You hear about it in other industries, but not necessarily in yours, I would say. For example, I told the children the other day, mine are teenagers, so they get some of the business concepts too, but tweenagers, I guess you call them. The CEO of Patagonia has that rule that at any point, if the waves are up, you can stop what you're doing to go surfing, and it's an analogy that you can stop what you're doing to go running. But people respect. But that's an outdoor company. You kind of expect that. Yeah. And Strava has a lot of things like this as well for its employees. But it's nice to see people take that and put it in their business. When I was a corporate employee, I guess I kind of am at a small company now, but when I was a corporate employee for 20 years, the last 5 years I was going gonzo with the amount of sitting in meetings that we were doing. And I would do things that really ruffled feathers, which was I stopped sitting during the entire meeting, which people were just like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? But the other thing I did, or at least tried to do, was convince one of my supervisors who had a 1 hour one-on-one meeting every week. I was like, could we have a walk and talk instead to where we're walking the loop outside to do this? And he was like, absolutely not. No. And things like that, it frustrated me because I was thinking, you're actually losing out on productivity here because we sit all day long in these meetings. We sit all day long at our desk.
I know.
And your creativity is much better in that zone 1, which is brisk walking. You get your mind thinking, you start thinking about things. It's not very fun in zone 5, but in zone 1, your creativity is fantastic.
I'll be sitting in a conference room having a meeting with my staff, and I wear my Apple Watch, and I don't know what the frequency is, but it appears to be like every 20 or 30 minutes I get a note that says stand up. So I will frequently stand up in the middle of these meetings, and folks will wonder why. And I said, hey, listen, Apple's telling me to stand up, and it feels so much better. Now folks, they sort of do that with me. They'll stand up for a little bit, sit down. But I think that's important to do.
I don't want to put myself in the super effective executive group. I am an executive, but I have found that first of all, to sort of solidify your approach, if I put an hour of training in prior to work, I'm way more effective. That's one. Number two is, and I don't tell people to do this, but I don't eat anything until about 10:30, 11, probably 11 o'clock in the day. And it's just because I have so much clarity when I'm fasted.
Yep.
I've been exercised. And number three is I don't sit down till after, I usually don't sit down at all until after 10:30. So even when I go to my desk, like right now I'm standing, when I go to my desk at my office, it will never even occur to me to put the desk down till after breakfast or something. Like I call it breakfast, it's probably lunch.
Yeah.
But those three things I have found, I think much more clearly. Now, if I sleep in until I have to get ready for work and I go in and sit down, I can already tell you my creativity and effectiveness is down by 35% right off the top.
See, there you go. That's a good endorsement for, getting in the work early if you can.
Hey man, I'm trying, the everyday athlete, keeping it tight and all those things. Can you tell us where people can find you and learn more about you?
Yes, thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn at Art Trapotsis, or my website, www.arttrapotsis.com, spelled ARTTRAPOTSIS.com.
And is that quiz up there as well? The Keep It Tight quiz?
We have the Keep It Tight quiz online where you can find out your balance score. I think there's 10 questions. There's probably double the amount of questions in the book if you want to get a little more advanced on it, but it's just sort of a fun quiz. It's not scientific, but it'll sort of tell you where on the balance scale. And I have folks texting me and email me all the time. Well, hey, is this thing broken? My balance is, pretty low. And usually there's a root cause as to why. So
yeah,
it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah. Well, Art, I'm certainly grateful that you've shared insights about your book and shared time with the audience here. Thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you, Dan. This was fun.